Hey, all, Chris Mystery Cleaning was on the file host. So I just wanted to do a quick video today about health and safety and insurance. So health and safety, it's the law. We have to abide by it. We have to keep people safe. That includes you, the people who work for you, and ultimately innocent bystanders. Innocent bystanders that could be impacted by you. And ultimately, you have to take account of all these things. Now, I'll be honest with you, I am in no way an expert on health and safety. I have a company I use called Mark Safety. I will leave a link in the description below. Strongly recommend you use those guys. They know the stuff when it comes to health and safety, things like risk assessments, which we'll go into shortly, risk assessments and managing risk and all that sort of stuff, and then tying that in with your insurance and stuff like that. So when it comes to health and safety, everyone should have, basically, as anyone who's self-employed who uses employees or contractors or such, any other people, should always have their own insurance. Now, the insurances that I use, again, I'll leave a link in the description of the people I go to for insurance, who I'm in no way sponsored by, but I think it's only fair that I give everybody the chance to have a quick nosy and sort of, compare the cost of insurance. People have this perception that insurance companies are out there to basically screw over every single man jack of us, trying to squeeze money out of businesses and individuals. There certainly are some unscrupulous sort of companies out there, but insurance by and large is it's worth having, because it protects you and it protects your brand and it protects your business, and it keeps basically other people from taking your shit ultimately. So a bit of a backstory. I recently, in the past sort of 3 or 4 weeks, I sent one of my guys out to do window cleaning on a street near us, and ultimately I got a phone call from a person who said he'd fallen over one of my hose reels. He'd caused damage to his legs. He basically needed stitches and all this sort of stuff, and ultimately, the long and short of it was he was going to sue me. And your immediate reaction when someone says something like that is, oh fuck, oh shit, blah blah, X, Y and Z, expletives straight out the, all the way. And then sort of thing. So I got some backstory, and ultimately he's claiming that he's got video, he's got pictures of the site where there was no signs, and it's my fault, and I'm suing you, and all this sort of stuff. Right. So ultimately, I took a bit of a backseat. I took a bit of a time, a bit of a condor moment, and just sort of said to myself, right, let's get to the bottom of this. Let's find out what's actually occurred, if anything has occurred, etc. Because as well as there being effectively, we live in a culture where suing people is, generally the first go-to means, if you like, of righting wrongs in this day, whether you like it or not. It is simply the case. Where there's a blame, where there's blame, there's a claim, etc., and all this sort of stuff. So ultimately, you've got to protect yourself, because if someone wants to blame you for something, whether it's your fault or not, you do leave yourself open to be sued. Okay. So ultimately, what's happened is, I spoke to the young lad, Andy, and I says, this guy's claiming that he's fallen over a hose reel. He's taken this pictures and photographs and filmed the site, if you like, done a video of the site. And I said to the young lad, I says, has anybody alerted you to the fact that they've tripped over the line you've put out? And he's like, no, they haven't. I was like, right, okay, fine. Did you see anybody taking a picture of the video, of pictures of the van? No, we haven't. Right, okay, fine. So now basically what's happened is this guy is expecting me to believe that he was walking down the street, minding his own business, and he tripped over my reel where there was no sign, apparently. He's fallen over, he's hurt, he's banged his knee, he's cut his leg open, all this sort of stuff. He's not cried out. He's not sought the attention of the person who put the line out, and has not sought to alert other people to the fact that he's hurt himself. And he's then had the wherewithal to then get up, not cry out, take photographs and video of the site, right? And then walk off and then call me on the office phone. All within 5 minutes. Within 5 minutes, right? Because having spoken to Andy, who is a really reliable guy and who is ultimately very professional, which is why we use him. You know, having spoken to him, no one's cried out in pain. He's been literally, 15 meters from the van at any one point because he's doing 3 houses on the same street. The van's not been out of sight for more than 2 minutes. For more than 3 minutes each house. The windows that we do on those streets, on the backs of those houses, there aren't many to do. So it's like literally 3 minutes a house. He does the front, then he does the back, and then he comes back out, and then he does the back, and then he does the front, and then he's, And you're telling me all of this has happened inside of the amount of time it's taken him to do the back of a house, which is like 3 minutes. I'm not buying it, to be honest with you. So then, I've spoken to my solicitor and my health and safety guru and my insurer. The long and short of this is basically that ultimately there is a process. If someone wants to sue you officially through a solicitor, they will send you documentation for you to take a copy for yourself and pass on to your insurer. Your insurer will then conduct an investigation and decide whether or not this is a worthy claim. Okay. If it's not a worthy claim, you'll not hear back. So basically what's happened is I've tried to conduct my own investigation as any responsible sort of business owner should, to find out what's happened, the whys and wherefores, who did what and when, etc. Right? So I've tried to conduct this this investigation. The guy left me a voicemail, has not really spoken to me. He's not spoken to me in person. He's just left voicemail after voicemail, and he's threatening to sue me and all this sort of stuff. And I requested that I see the pictures and the video that he's apparently taken of the site. She's not obliged to show, but ultimately, I'm not handing over my insurance details to something I don't believe to be true. And ultimately, he then requested my insurance details again, without addressing any of my concerns. So, and then ultimately, what's happened is that I've spoken to my solicitor, and my solicitor has ultimately turned around and said, leave it, let it lie. If he wants to sue you properly, then he'll do it through his solicitor. They'll send you documentation, you pass it on to the insurer, and that's the end of it. You just let them deal with it. And if the insurer pays out, the insurer pays out. But ultimately, having that insurance there protects me, because if you don't have insurance and someone makes a claim, then ultimately if you are sued, you can have property taken from you that's personally yours. You can incur fines. Don't pay the fines, they'll come and take assets and all this sort of stuff. So it's worth having insurance. And again, I'll leave a link in the description for Chadwick's, who deal with all my insurances and have done from day one. Yeah, so the health and safety side of it, ultimately conducting a risk assessment. So we are aware that the reels are a low to medium risk, if you like, of someone falling over them. And to that end, we put that on our risk assessment paperwork. Now the thing is what have we done to mitigate that risk? Okay, and that's all these risk assessments are. They're asking you as a business owner, what have you done, or what are you going to do to mitigate the risk of someone hurting themselves? So we could use a really, really dark coloured line, which doesn't contrast particularly well with the road, and ultimately, yeah, all right, if there's no sign left out, then someone could trip over this line. But what we do, we personally at Street Cleaning, we use sky blue lines, which contrast really well during the day, and during twilight, sort of night sort of dark conditions, if you like, in high traffic areas, we use the bright yellow hose line. We're always within sight of the van, and where there is a high traffic area, we have these cones that we put out to say warning, trip hazard, etc., and all that sort of stuff. Now, when all's said and done, that's all you can do as a business owner. You cannot, man. Someone may still trip over that line. But you have done all you can do as a business owner, all that is reasonably expected of you as a business owner. And if someone is on their phone, not paying attention to their surroundings, and falls over your line, well, you've done what you can do. And if that person's been a donut, been an idiot, and not minded his own surroundings and tripped over it, well, you can't cater for people like that. You've done what you can do, and that's all that a risk assessment basically does. So you look at all aspects of your business. When we had a vehicle fire last year, which was caused, by the stainless steel reels. I performed an emergency stop because some school kid on a bicycle shot across the front of my van, and all that was between me and turn him into raspberry jam was the emergency stop. So I slammed on the emergency stop, and we conducted an investigation afterwards. What happened was the stainless steel reel shot forward, knocked one of the rubber connectors off the electrical supply. It should have had a guard on it, but it didn't. And then what happened was this conducted heat and electric through the van, and ultimately caused a fire in the back of the van. Not a massive fire, just enough to cause a lot of smoke and burning rubber. And we needed new wires and new cables, and the machine basically needed an overhaul, and it cost me something in the region of about 600 quid to put right, but ultimately no one got hurt. And so yeah, it's just important for you to take note of things like risk assessments. They are important, and a lot of job sites won't let you on to their site unless you have a risk assessment, a quite robust one in place. So I'd recommend anybody that wants to conduct work for any form of business, so things like building sites, hotels, quite large hotels where you're not always within sight of someone, schools. Health and safety is massively important when working around a site that children will be exposed to. If you leave a tool lying around, like for example, as a tradesman, if you leave a tool lying around and as a result a child picks that up and plays with it thinking it's a toy, and it rips one of their arms off, then you've got a problem, and it's a big one, and it's coming your way pretty quick. So yeah, risk assessments and insurance. So the sorts of insurances that I have is public liability. That is if I hurt someone myself. I also have what's called vicarious liability, which is if I send someone someone else to do work, and they injure a third party, then I have insurance that protects me from that. I have legal insurance, which ultimately means if I end up being dragged through the courts, my legal costs will be covered by my insurance. Employer's liability, because even though I don't use employees, then ultimately if they're doing something they shouldn't, then ultimately I am responsible, and that protects me from that. So ultimately just speak to an insurance company about it, or better still, I go through a broker. Brokers tend not to take their fees from the client. They don't take their fees from you. They get their commission from the insurance company that recommends them. Now the thing is that make sure you go through a reputable broker. Again, I use Chadwick's. They are reputable. They have access to some policies that other insurance brokers don't, and as a result, sometimes ironically the premiums can be cheaper. And when all said and done, I'm a window cleaner. I clean windows for a living. I don't know the first thing about insurance other than what it covers me for, how much it costs me, and all that sort of stuff, and what level of protection it gives me as an individual and as a company. So ultimately, always best, never be afraid to seek the advice of someone who's cleverer than you. Seek the advice of someone who that's their field. Okay, it's similar to health and safety. Mark Safety, and Mark, the guy that runs it is called Mark. Ultimately, his background in health and safety is second to none. He knows the legislation. He knows the changes in the law. He knows the responsibility, the rights and responsibilities of an employer and of a business. So ultimately, I would be an absolute donut to try and do it all myself, and do that. Ultimately, hope I get it right. Seek the advice of professionals is all I'd say. So yeah, I hope you got use out of this video. And as usual, any questions, leave them in the comment section. I will endeavour to try and get through as many as I can. Thanks for supporting the channel. Like, share and subscribe, and let's get this information out to people who basically need it. And yeah, have a great day, everyone. See you in the next video. All the very best. Bye now.